going through after midterm, whatever we have gone through. So after midterm, we actually started discussing object-oriented approach, right? So in the object-oriented approach, what we do is we write, instead of writing a large, long program, we write small several objects. We distribute our program into several classes or several objects. And each object have their own data and behavior. The advantage of object-oriented approach is code reusability. So remember, we discussed the example of an oven or the what is it called, the mixer. So with the help of a mixer, we can not only mix the ingredients of a cake, but we can also use the same object, same type, to perform some other tasks. Okay, so and all objects have identity, attributes, maybe example color, size, occupancy, and each object has a behavior associated to it. So if you recall the example of creating a Toyota car, so Toyota car has an identity. Each Toyota car will have an identity that we call an object. And remember, we talked about the Highlander as an object, as a Toyota car, object of a Toyota car. Similarly, Corolla was a separate object created out of Toyota car class. Each of them had different attributes: color, size, occupancy, type, model, and both of them were they both had some behavior associated with them. How do we create objects? They are created out of class, which is simply a template based on which we create number of objects. It's a group of data containing different variables, attributes, and functions, and we can initialize class with the help of a keyword class. And the syntax for writing a class is you should first have a keyword class, just like when writing a method or a function. You have a keyword def, right? Similarly, while writing a class, you should have a keyword class, and then you write its name, class name, and then whatever you want to write inside it. Okay, so this is how you can initialize a class. You can write start constructing a class with some specific methods, attributes, and so on. So what are methods? How do you differentiate a method and a function? So methods are simply functions, but they are defined inside a class. They are a part of the class. So the main distinction between a function and a method is basically method is associated to class, and the functions are just independent functions that are defined outside class. Okay, and by standard convention, self is the name of the first parameter in every method. In whatever method we define inside the class, self is always the first parameter. So you have to be very cautious when you're writing a code, either on a paper or if you're given a question like what is the correct method. So you should know that if self is not defined as a first parameter in any method inside the class, it is considered as an invalid method. Okay, and while calling the method, we do not need to pass an argument self parameter. If you have like two parameters defined in, let's say, if I were to pull up the board, me okay. It's loading. Okay, so for example, if you have a class, certain, let's say, test class, and then you have methods inside it, definition, for example, init method number of parameters. For example, another method, let's say def abc, and then the first parameter would always be self. Okay, and let's say we have x and y are the parameters. So maybe some other stuff here. So when you are calling this, let's say you create an object for this test class. Let's say you give it a name obj equal test. This is how we create an object of a class, and then let's say I'm calling a function obj dot this function abc. I do not need to pass this argument self. Okay, I only need to pass x and y. If I pass 5 or 6, 5 will be assigned to this and 6 will be assigned to this. So this is what this slide says, that while calling a method, we do not need to pass the self argument. But while defining a method, we must define self as the first parameter in a mini method. Okay. We have an initializer or constructor method. It's called initializer method because whenever we create an object, this initializer method automatically calls itself. Okay, while the other method, as we have just seen, the abc method will not call itself unless we actually call it. So initializer method, once we create an object, it automatically calls itself, and whatever logic is written underneath it, it will be automatically executed. Okay, so there are some terminologies like creating an object from a class template is called instantiation, and the created object is called an instance. So for example here, Toyota car, this is a initializer method. Every method you can see self, it should also have a self parameter as a first parameter, and this is how you can create an instance or an object. So when you create an object with the help of Toyota car class, passing required parameters, color, 2022 is a model, and sedan is the type. So we are creating an object out of Toyota car template, class template, and this is what we call an instance, and this procedure is called instantiation. Next thing is we can access attributes inside the class with the help of a dot operator, and it's also called the member operator or dot notation, used to access the attributes of objects. It could be a single variable or it could be a method. So here you can see in this class we created an object, two different objects, two different instances, Corolla and Highlander, and then we are accessing the variable color of associated with Corolla. Okay, so with the help of a dot notation you can access these variables, and it will print black because the color type of the color associated to this object Corolla is black. If you would be calling it on Highlander, it would print blue. Okay, so you need to understand. So you might be given a simple piece of code, and you might be asked what a certain instruction would print as the output. Yes. What's the difference between what?
What's the difference between using the dot notation and then calling a method that just returns the color?
Okay, so if we have a method that reads the color value and returns it, we can either call that method, or since in this particular code, in this particular snippet, we do not have any such method, so we can access particular variable. So with the help of a color dot color, we are actually accessing a variable, not any particular method. So you can do either way. Either you can write a separate method which reads the color from here and then return it to the place where it is being called from. Okay. Otherwise, we can also access a particular attribute directly. Does that answer your question? There are two different ways. Again, you can access the variable directly with the help of a dot color, or if you do not want to access it right like this, if you would like to have a separate method written, maybe I can explain it on.
I guess, is there like a situation where one is better than the other?
Usually, it is better to not access the variables directly, because it is sometimes like it is better to write proper method which should read the value. You should not be accessing those variables, because accidentally you might end up rewriting the actual value. So color dot we are here printing the code. Instead, I would write Corolla dot color equals something. So I could actually accidentally overwrite the default value that was assigned to this object when it was created. So, so it is better recommended do not access any particular variable unless it is needed. Okay. And if something needs to be accessed, we usually create a method called, let's say, get color is a method which will return the color, or we can create another method. This is a standard convention. We can create a method, let's say, set color. So if you want to set a color, you should not be accessing the variable directly. You should rather call the set method. Let's say you should call a method like this. For example, if you have to update, you should, and you may have a, if I were to put them down, and you can have a definition set underscore color. First argument is always self, and then you take color as an input, or COL, whatever. And then what you do is self dot color equals the new color that is being passed. So when you create, when you call this method, let's say you are calling this method on obj dot set underscore color, and then you pass the color, let's say orange, then it will be assigned to this variable, and the previous value that was assigned at the time of creating an object, it will be overridden. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So this is an activity actually. I would give a pause for 5 minutes. You create a class name vehicle and initialize default attributes named name, model, max speed, mileage, and similarly follow the other remaining steps. Let me pause it. This was just for your practice, and I do not have the solution. You can, I will post the slides so you can practice it further. I would now like to move forward. So you can expect similar kind of things in your exam. Okay, so after talking about the classes and objects, we started off discussing about the string methods. And a string slicing is simply we can extract a certain piece of character, certain number of characters from the string by using a formal method called slicing. We specify the start index and the end index, and the end index is always exclusive. So this was the example that we studied during our regular lectures. So this is the input string, and if you would like to obtain a substring from this string, you specify the start index where you want to extract or start reading from. So 7:23, so 23 would be excluded. So everything is starting from the value which is placed at the 7th index all the way until the value which is placed at 22nd index, 22, okay, because 23 is exclusive. And it will read and assign it to new variable named domain, and then we are printing the domain. So this is where what you get. So here you can see start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So 7th character here is E, and it will start reading from E all the way until the 22nd character, 23 minus 1 character, which is G. Okay. So it retrieves a substring from URL between 7 to 23 minus 1. We can also use negative numbers relative to the end of a string, like this. So once we specify starting from 0 colon minus 2 means read the value until the second last character. Second last character is excluded. Okay. So here, so this corresponds to the minus 1, which is the last character. Minus 2 corresponds to the second to last character. So these two last characters will not be included in the read string. Okay. Any question? So we are just going through it. You may expect similar kind of questions in exam. Yep.
Does the new line symbol count as one character or two characters?
New line what?
Because I think that I did a program where I wanted to remove the new line, /ns from a string, and I was wondering if it counts as one character or two characters.
So \n is considered as a single character. Yeah. Yeah, if you have written a string here in your program, unless you do not specify \n character explicitly, you would not see it. Otherwise, if you are reading it from the file, it is automatically appended when you press the carriage return or the end change of line character. Yeah. Yeah, it should. That's a good question, actually. We can try that out also to verify how does it work. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next step. Okay, we can omit a start index. So if we do not specify any index, it means that we are starting to read from the first character all the way until the character that we have specified. So here in this case 0 to 4, because 5 is excluded. Similarly, we can omit the end index, means we are starting to read from 5 all the way until the end of the string. Slice stride is a third argument that acts as an incrementer or decrementer. It's simply an offset. So here in this string number from 0 to 9, we can print all the string and the entire string by just, even if you do not specify this slicing, it will print the entire string anyway. If you just excluded all this, this kind of syntax like square brackets and the colon, if you just include numbers, it would print the entire string. But this is just to show you that we are reading from the beginning all the way until the end, and incrementer by default is 1. We can also specify reading from start until the end and increment every character by 2. So it would print, starting from here, it will start printing from 0. It will skip 2 characters and then print the next one, and then skip 2 characters, every second character, sorry. Okay, so from 0, it prints these every second character, and then 4, and then 6, and then 8. Similarly here, starting from 1, stop at 9, which is excluded, and give a jump of 3 characters. So starting from 1, it read another third character, 2, 3, 4. It will read 4, and then the third character, 5, 6, 7 is the third character, and 8, 9 we are already done with the input string. Okay. Some string methods. Split method splits a string into a list of tokens, which we call substrings. So we need to specify the separator, which is an optional parameter. If we do not specify a separator, a white space character is automatically considered as a separator. Okay, so for example, here in this case, I love Python. Here you can see we are splitting this string with the help of a split method, and we are not specifying any separator in between here. So it means that a white space between every word would be considered as a separator. So it will create 3 elements in a list. So first of all, split always returns a list containing number of elements around the separator. So here I is a separate element, love is a separate element, and Python is a separate element. You can also specify a separator, just like here, /. So you take this code takes the input from the user, which is specify the input URL of any website. Here is a Wikipedia/wiki/Ethernet. So what we are trying to do here is splitting the string with the /. Yep.
What is an Ethernet?
It's a page name here.
Well, I'm sure
It's a type of protocols with the help of which we actually use internet. All right, so here you can see because of this last /, you can see an empty string, an empty element is also created at the end. Okay, so you've got to be very careful. If you have a separator at the end, there will be an empty element created at the end of the list. Okay, and I remember still that I gave a demonstration about this when we were discussing this lecture. Inverse operation of a split is join. So just like we can split this string, we can also join this string. So it is exactly the opposite behavior. In the split method, the input is a long string, which splits the string into list elements. In the join method, it will take the input, a list containing number of elements, and then it will join them together around the separator. So here is the syntax. So we first specify the separator, and then we specify the string to join. So it's a list. It will take a single list containing multiple elements, and we can join those elements with the help of a separator. The example here, again the same thing that we have discussed before. So Bill Gates, Microsoft, there are two elements in the list, and we are specifying @ as a separator. So it will first read the first element in the list, Bill Gates. It will insert the @ symbol, and then we have a Microsoft. If we would have another element here in this list, let's say USA, so it would create a string Bill Gates @ Microsoft @ USA. Okay. So join method takes a single list argument, as I have mentioned, and each element in the list is concatenated with the separator in between. Another replace method provides much simpler way to replace old occurrences of a string with a new one. So here we specify the old string that we want to replace with a new one. Let's take an example here. Again, this is a string. Yukon has a Stanford, stores, Hartford, Waterbury, Every Point campuses. And what we want to replace is these commas with the /. Okay. So once we specify string.replace, it search the old string in the input string, which is this one in string, and replace every occurrence of the old string with the new one. So comma is replaced with /. here. We can also specify how many occurrences of an old string we want to replace with the help of a count parameter. So here we are specifying 2, which means that we only want to replace first 2 occurrences of the old string. Here you can see the first 2 occurrences. The first one is after Stanford, which is replaced here with the /, and then we have the after stores. The store is also replaced with the /, and then the remaining occurrences of these strings would remain same. When we were not specifying any count parameter, any value here, it would replace everything, all the occurrences. Any question? Great. We also talked about find x method. We can, in the string, we can explicitly determines the index of a particular character in the string. So example, hello Lily, we can find the index of the exclamation mark, which it will return as 11th. This is the 11th character in this string. We can also find the index of a substring. So here you can see HELL is a part of this string. but it would return 0 because this entire substring is starting at index 0. Okay, I could have checked what would be the index of Lily. So what do you think? What would it return? If I say LILL or LILLY, what do you think it should return? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It should return 6. Fifth character is the white space character. So it should return 6 because Lily is starting from the index 6. Okay. Here, double L, there are 2 occurrences of double L in this string. It will return the first occurrence. So double L is present at index number 2. 0, 1, and 2 is the first occurrence of double L. We can also skip this by start to search from a certain index value. And if you do not find, if the string that we are looking for is not present, it would simply return -1. As I mentioned, we can also look for a string by specifying the boundary where we want to look at. So we can specify the index, start and end. We can also specify, so for example, I can look at LL between 5th character and the last character, or simply start to search from 5th character and it would return the index value of double L, skipping the first occurrence because we are starting to search from this particular value, particular index. Okay. And here in the last example, you can see Lily is present in this string, but we are searching within the boundary of 0 and 5th index. So here in this area, Lily is not present. That is why it returns -1. Any question? So these are just simple things which you may expect in MCQs, multiple choice questions. So just go through the slides and you'll be all good. The string comparison, again, I do not want to spend so much time on it. I already talked about that how the strings are compared. So for example, equal simply makes sense that equal would compare every single character with the 2 strings. Here they are not equal because there is an exclamation mark here. What happens with the greater or smaller symbol? How does it compare? Yankee Sierra and Amy Wise. I explained that that thing in detail. How does it compare? Why do you think Yankee Sierra is greater than Amy Wise? Yep.
Because there's ASCII values associated with the
Yes, the ASCII values. Y has an ASCII value greater than the first character of the second string A. So A has an ASCII value 65, which is just an additional information, and Y has an ASCII value somewhere before Z. I think it would be 65 plus 25th would be 80, I guess. Yep, 90. So this value, the first character, ASCII value of the first character is greater than the ASCII value of the first character in this string. So it is overall considered as a larger string than this one. So that's why it returns the value true. Okay. Similarly, we can use a membership operator, SEPH in Joseph. So this exists, so it returns true. Joe in Joseph is not present because we are comparing. A comparison is always case sensitive. This is a small j and here is a capital J. Okay. Then we started talking about the data structures. We have a long way to go. If you have any questions specifically to any topic, you can just interrupt and ask. So we are all going through everything that we have discussed so far after specifically midterm. So we discussed the data structure list, and specifically here in this slide we are talking about the nested list. So list containing other list within itself is called as the nested list. So here you can see list containing 2 elements. My list contains 2 elements. First element is also a list which also contains 2 elements. It could contain 10 elements, it could contain 20 elements also. But the my list, the size of the my list is what? What is the size of the my list? Can anyone tell me? What is the size of my list? If I were to run len method on this my list, what would, yeah, exactly, it will return 2 because it contains 2 elements. Okay, so it only checks the upper level of nested hierarchy. So first nested list we can extract by specifying the index here. So it will 0th element of my list is also a list which it will return 10, 20. We can also return print the first element. This is the 0th element, this is the first element, and we can also specify any particular element within the nested list. So this one would print go to 0, will read 0th element, and in this 0th element, what element we are reading? Again the 0th element here. So again, when you are given a question like this, you would be asked to determine what would be the output. You would be given a list. You can simply identify that you are accessing the 0th element first, okay, and then within that 0th element you are accessing again here 0th element. If I would have written 1 here, then it would print 20. Okay, any question in the nested indexing? Okay, so to access all items in the list we use for loops, and if it is a nested list we need nested for loops. So first of all, in this list the outer for loop will access elements of the main list, which is, so the first time it will read the entire row, and so outer loop will read the entire row, and once we read the entire row, then we are reading the elements within that row, the column elements within that row, with the help of another for loop. So first this thing is read, and then within this list first element, second element, and third element is read and printed here. Okay, so there is another activity for you guys. Write a program to print every second element of each sublist in the following list nums in a separate row. Again, this is just for practice. We will not be spending too much time on it. Let's take 5 minutes and try doing this. I think we have done such an activity before. So every second element so how many loops do you need? Two loops. So first loop will access the rows, and once you access a row, then you have to access every second element, right? So what you can do is you can generate, maybe in the second loop you can generate you can use a range function also, or you can use an if-else structure. If the value of a loop is the second element, you can divide it by 2. You can use different logics. Okay. You can also use a range function and specify the offset value. So starting from 0, and then it should rather be reading the first one, should rather be reading second. Try to write something, and then only then you will be able to proceed. Has anyone got to a solution? You could start also with 1, because we have to print starting from 2, and then row 2. Good. Row X, and then you have to give a space and character.
Oh,
right?
sorry.
And then after printing the first row elements, then we should also have a print statement at the end to change the line. Got it?
Oh, wait, it prints
So first of all, write end here.
Is that right?
Yeah, like this. And then once it prints the last one, like 2, 6, then it will again append end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next time when the outer loop runs, then it would be again printing in along the same line. So
I
that's why
see.
you should have
So-
a print here.
Okay.
A simple print outside this for loop.
Okay.
Must be inside this one, but outside this one. So empty print statement would just simply enter a line.
I'm
About
having
here.
a hard time figuring out. I think this would be the function, but having
Where are you? Where have you
Well-
started reading from?
Well, I was just trying to write a program to get every second number, but I'm having a hard time remembering how it would access each sublist.
So what is this? For I in range 1, length A in 2. This is correct, but this is how you are accessing the elements, the inner elements of each row, right?
Mm-hmm.
To access each row, you should have an outer loop.
Okay.
So for
For
let's say row in nums. So
Okay.
nums contains all the rows, and row will be accessed. For x in nums for I in range length of x. Okay, so you're doing it like this. Good. What about you, Alex?
I know how to access every element, but I'm not sure how to access every other one.
For j in I. Okay. I'll show the solution now. John?
How would I do it so that it would go, it points
For row
to
in nums. Yeah, so it will access this row.
Yeah.
My
and
line is
this.
working now. Okay, yeah, I know. So for this row is accessed with the help of this one.
Mhm.
So once this row has access, now you have to access every second element starting from the first one.
Oh,
For j in
it's
range, so what is range? So range should be starting from
one,
the 1
and
and go until what point?
four,
Until the size of this one,
three.
and every time it should give an offset of 2.
Oh.
I'll show the solution here. Okay, so just a quick, although I do not have the solution written in the slides, but this is how you should be doing it. For row in nums, you should be accessing, this would give you the row in the nums nested list, and once you get the row, you start off reading from the first element, because we have to first print 2 and then what was that, 4 or 6? Has any have anyway, so it will start reading from the first one and go all the way until the length of the row, because the first row had 4 elements, the second row had 5 elements, it could be any number of elements, and every time we have to read the second character, so we are giving an offset of 2, and here we print the row, give a space, and after printing the first row elements, we have to change the line, so we can simply write print statement which can change the line. Okay, any question? It would all be recorded in the video, you do not need to copy. Okay, so I'm proceeding. Alright, so these are the list slicing examples. So start and end index, how it works, it is all written here. Start, end, and stride value. We can also skip the end index, so it's from start reading from the start index all the way until the end. We can also skip the start index, which means that starting to read from the 0th index all the way until the end -1 index, and we can read everything just by leaving the start and end index empty. Next data structure we studied was sets. It's an unordered, no position or index, collection of unique elements, and elements of the set cannot be accessed via indexing. As you have just seen that we can access any particular element by specifying its index value in the list, okay, but in set we cannot access any element by specifying their index value, and the reason why is because the elements are unordered, are placed unordered. So for example, if you start creating a set, let's say you insert an element 1, 2, 3, and then when you create an element 4, then it might be possible that it may be placed at the beginning or at the middle or at the end. It's a randomly placement. Okay, how do we create sets? We can either use a set method, just like we can use a list method to create a list. We can use a set method, specify the list 1, 2, 3, and it would convert it into a set. And sets are usually depicted with the help of curly braces. Okay, the list depiction is square brackets, and sets depiction is curly braces. We can also use simple curly braces to create a set. Just like we can use square brackets to create list, we can use curly braces to create sets. So we can also specify nums equal curly braces 1, 2, 3, and it will create a set containing these 3 elements. We can add or remove elements in a set. So these are some of the methods that we can execute on set data structure. We can calculate the size of the set. We can also update a set which is named as set 1 with the new set elements, set 2. So it will add the elements in set 2 into the set 1. Now here, for example, set 1 contains some elements which are also present in set 2. So it will only be placing those elements which are unique, which are not already present in set 1, okay, because it contains only unique elements. So set dot add values into the set. So again, pay attention to this thing that I'm saying. If you have a set, let's say 1, 2, 3, and set 1 is 1, 2, 3, and set 2 is, let's say, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when you update this, so it will create a new set, or it will add the elements of set 2 into set 1 with only unique elements, which means 1, 2, 3 were already there, so it will only add 4 and 5. Okay. We can also add a value just by passing the value into this method, and it will be added into set if it does not already exist. We can remove the value from the set, raise key error if the value is not found. So we have to specify the value. Pop method randomly removes any value, removes and return the value, any random value. In list, again, it is important, if you are running a pop method on list, it will remove the last element. Okay, if you are running a pop method on set, it will remove any random element. You do not know which element will be removed. Okay. Clear method clears all the elements in the set. Any question in sets? Okay, great. So another important data structure that we studied was dictionaries. It's a key and a value pair. So every element, every item, the elements in the dictionaries are usually referred as items, and every item is split into key and its associated value. Okay, and the depiction of dictionary is also with the help of curly braces. So the difference between set data structure is that you have comma separated single values that depicts the set. If you see a curly braces and you have comma separated values, but each value has a colon in between, has a key and its associated value pair, that actually indicates that it's a dictionary. Okay, just like this one here, key 1, value 1, key 2, value 2, and so on. So here we have a key USA, dollar, Germany, euro, and South Korea, Korean won. So keys must always be unique. Okay, we cannot have two same keys in the dictionary. USA is a unique key. We cannot have another key with the name USA. Okay, but we can have a same value for different keys. So USA can have a dollar here. Similarly, I can also assign a same value dollar to South Korea. Okay, so keys are unique, but values are not. Adding a new element, again, we have discussed this before. In order to add a new element, you have to first call currencies, and then with the help of like square brackets, you specify the key name. Here Qatar equals QAR. So Qatar already does not exist here, so it will create a new key and its associated value QAR as a new item in this list. Okay, so if the item already exists, just like here, currencies USA. USA already exists in currencies, and if you assign a value, the previous value will be overwritten. Okay, so USA equals USD. Now, there was a problem in your assessments in 921 specifically, where we were assigning new values, appending new values to the existing key. So if you were to assign a new value, it will be overwritten. So you need to have an additional logic, like if the key already exists, and you want to add a new value, it's up to you whether you want to add it like concatenating the string with a plus sign, or maybe creating a list and add a new element in the value. Okay, so here you can see the key already existed, so the value that I use, it is overwritten. It overwrites the previous value of dollar with the USD. We can also delete an element by using the keyword del, using the currencies dictionary name and any key. So it will delete the key and its associated value. If the key does not exist, you will get an error, the key error. Okay, any question? Next thing is, these are the some methods. Clear is again clearing the contents of the dictionary. Get key default value. So here you can see that you can read the value of a dictionary as by specifying either, let's say we have a currencies, and you specify USA, and it will return its associated value, which is, let's say if it is USD, it will return USD. For example, if you use the same thing, let's say you specify Pakistan, it does not exist, so it will throw off an excuse me, it will throw off an error that the key does not exist. Okay. However, we can also retrieve the key in different way with the help of a get key method, which is what shown up here. So instead of having an error, we can introduce a default message. So if key does not exist, we are retrieving the key and its associated value by using the get key method. So here you can see there's a dictionary, and we are trying to access my dictionary.get Jane. So Jane already exists, so it will not produce the default message NA. In this example, next one, here Chad does not exist in this dictionary, so it will produce a default message instead of throwing off an error. Okay. Same my dictionary 1, update my dictionary 2. We had an exercise associated to that. It will create it will add the elements of my dictionary 2 into the elements of my dictionary 1. So here is an example. You can update with the new list, the new dictionary John 50. He will be added. This value will be added into the existing my dictionary. And same as the key pop method removes the element, removes and returns the key value from the dictionary. If the key does not exist, it will throw off, it will display the default message, whatever you want to display. Okay. Then, yeah, we can iterate through the key elements. There are 3 different ways iterating through keys. So D is a dictionary here. If I could give it a name, any name, I could give it a name I, J, K, or I could have given it a name value also. But again, remember, giving it a name value does not mean that it will be holding the value of the keys. It will only be holding the values, the keys actual value. Okay. So here when you print this, it will only print the keys in the dictionary, hi, a, to, and apple. Okay. Similarly, we can access the values because iterating through our dictionary will retrieve the key, and we can retrieve the value by specifying the key as an index in the dictionary. So D is the name of the dictionary. We specify the name of the key, and it will return its corresponding value. So for the first key, 3 is associated with a high, and for the second time it returns, so key will be holding a value A, and we are actually passing the value of A in D dictionary as an index, and it will return its corresponding value -5, and so on and so forth. So these are the 2 ways of accessing keys and values, but we do have special methods to extract the keys, values, and key and value both. So with the help of keys method, we can access keys specifically. With the help of values method, we can access values specifically. And with the help of items method, item returns the value as a tuple. Tuple means like comma separated value. The first the value before the comma is always key, and the second value after comma is always an associated value of a key. Again, if you recall, I gave an example that I could replace these variables. Okay, so it does not mean that key will be holding the actual key or value will be holding the actual value. Let me tell you what do I mean by that. So for example, if I write for, let's say for, so this is what I was doing, values in, let's say this is the dictionary, and I'm running an items method on it. Okay, so items method return two values. It returns two values. First, it returns the key and its associated value here. Okay, so the key will be assigned to this one and the value will be assigned to this variable. Now you could be given something like this. For, let's say if I write values and key here. Again, these are just variable names. You can give any name. In dictionary, and I'm running items method again. And now what will happen is it will again return two values, key and its associated value. Key will be assigned to again the variable just before a comma, and the value will be assigned to again the variable that is defined after comma. The value variable does not mean that it will be holding a value. You could have given a name a comma b. You could have given a name I comma j. So the variable which is defined before comma would always be containing key, and the variable after comma would always be containing value. Okay, so do not get confused if you see different kind of variables defined here. Any question here? Clear? Good. Okay. All right, so this is the nested dictionary. Here we have grades. Again, the curly braces specify that this is a dictionary, and within that dictionary the first element is also a dictionary. This is a complex data structure here. The first element is also a dictionary, and again in the nested dictionary we have three elements. In the first element we have a list. So we did an exercise. Again, you can go through the lecture slides which we discussed before, and it is a very powerful way of organizing data. So in order to access any particular element, for example here, let's say if I have to access 65, how would I be accessing it? 65 in this one. So let's say if I just copy this, or sorry, not this one. Let's copy this entirely and put it in the whiteboard. Okay. Let's see if I got it here or not. Yes. Yep. I got it here. So for example, if I have to access this one, this element, how can you access this? What should you be writing? I have to access this particular value. So what should you be writing? What is the first of all, you need to access the outer data structure. Suppose you have to access room number 305. this classroom. How can you access room number 305? First of all, you need to come to Stanford, right? From Stanford. So here again, this is the outer data structure is what? Its name's grades. From grades, where do you need to access? UConn Stanford campus, right? So here in the grades, where do you need to access? Glenn McGraw. This is the name of the student, Glenn McGraw. Okay. So this is how you can access this key of grades. Okay. Now in grades, where do you need to go further? Which element? Homeworks. Homework is the key for this one. So you would be writing homework. So let's say if you were to compare it with the analogy that we are discussing is third floor. Okay. In the third floor is a list. Okay. It's containing number of rooms. If you talk about in the third floor, we have several different rooms. Which room we have to go to is particular. Either I can say that it's a second last room. If I say second last room, what should I be writing here? If I say third room, for example, or considering from the 0th index, if I say second room, so 0, 0, 1, and 2, right? I can just simply write 2. If I say second last room, go to the second last room, or go to the second, extract the second last grade. What should I be writing in here? Yep. -2 would access the second last element. Okay. So this is how you should be able to extract any particular data from the nested dictionary or any nested data structure. Okay. After this, we discuss the command line arguments. In the command line arguments, we can actually pass the argument values while executing the command line, executing the Python script. So here, Python is the command that we use to execute the Python script. What is the Python script here in this case? File name .py, and then we specify any number of arguments, input 1, input 2, input 3. So where do these arguments go? So these arguments actually by default is stored in the list named argv, or you can call it argument value list. Okay, where this list is defined? This list is defined in a built-in module named sys. Sys is the module that deals with the system related stuff in Python. Okay, so how can we access that list? So first of all, we need to access the name of the module, which is sys. So which means that we first need to import that module. So import sys, and once we import sys, then we can sys.argv. With the help of this dot notation, we can access that particular list. And in order to access a particular element of the list, we can just specify their index values, right? So sys.argv would return 0, the 0 would return the first argument, which is the file name. And then the second argument, which is the argument that we are passing, and the third one, and so on and so forth. Okay, and to perform the arithmetic operations, whatever argument that we pass, even if you pass 10 or 100 or 1.2, whatever, it is always passed as a string type data. Okay, in order to perform any operations on it, mathematical operations on it, you need to convert it into either integer or floating point data type. Modules and import. While importing a Python module, we do not need to specify .py extension. Just like what we discussed about system, importing a system module, you would not be writing import sys.py. You would just simply be writing import sys. Here, packages is a directory. So instead of importing any particular module, we can import an entire directory that contains the submodules. So here, the last item xyz must be a package, import abc.xyz, which means that we are specifying the hierarchy. So xyz is the directory name which is defined inside or initialized inside the abc directory. So import abc.xyz would import the package, and it could be a sub package. If you are using this form of importing from abc, it means that from that particular package, let's say abc, from that particular directory abc, import xyz module. It could be a module, it could be a direct function. If it is a file name, it could be a function, variable, or a class, etc. Okay, or it could be a sub package, it could be a module also. Okay. If you do not have any questions in importing and exporting, then we proceed ahead with the reading files. I still have like a couple of slides left, like 4 or 5 slides. So you should know how we can read the file data. You have experienced this a couple of times in your assessments on Zybooks as well, and as well as on the exercises that we did and the class activities. So built-in open method we can use to open any file and then read the data in different forms. Either read the entire data as a single string, or we can read the data line by lines. So read lines would return a list of strings, and each element in the list would be considered as a separate line in your file. Okay, and read line would return a single line. So here, for example, quotation.txt, it is assumed that this file is placed in the same directory where this reading file.py file is placed. If it is placed somewhere else, then you have to specify the full path of that file. And then quote equals motivation.read, so which means that it will be reading the entire contents of this file. If I would be writing using read lines method, it would be reading line by line and would be creating a list containing separate elements as a separate lines in this file. And after reading, you close it, and then you can print whatever you want to do with it. Similarly, we have the write method, writing files. We can write the data with the help of a write method. So you have to specify the mode of operations. When you open a file, if you do not specify any mode like W or R or A, we will talking about it. We have already discussed that before. If you do not specify any mode, so the open object would create the file in read mode by default. Okay, as you can see it here before, we did not specify any mode. It means that by default we are actually reading the contents. We are not writing the contents in here. If you have to write the content, you should be opening it in the write mode, and then you can write hello, my first write operation, whatever you want to write, and then in the close or whatever you want to do. Again, whenever we are writing into a file, it has to be in the string format. So if you have to process some data and you have to write it into a file, you should know that first of all you have to process that mathematical data, convert it into a string format, and then only then you can write it. This is a very important point. Okay. So here, for example, 2022 is considered as an arithmetic value, the mathematical value. You cannot just pass this value into write function. Otherwise, you will get an error that you are trying to write something which is not of a string type. Okay. Then we discussed modes of operation. So R is specifying R, which means that we are reading the file. Even if you do not specify any mode, but default behavior is you are reading the file. Then you have write operation mode, and then append operation mode. So you can see which one would be overwriting the file, which will be creating. So you should be careful what mode of operation you are using. And plus operation, we can specify to either read and write both. Okay. We also discussed about sometimes developers forget to close the file, so it's better to use with this way of opening and performing reading or writing whatever operation you want to use. So with open, the same thing, this is the opening file, and you are giving this object a name f. Similarly, you are doing the same thing here. With open this object, this file, and give it a name f as f, and then do the same thing. You do not need to execute this instruction f.close, because once these set of instructions are executed, once this block is finished, it will automatically close the file. And the CSV module that we discussed, how to read the CSV module, you can go through it as well in the slides. We have like only three slides left, 2 slides. Go through NumPy also. We discussed NumPy yesterday. So unlike lists in which plus operator concatenates list, so whatever we are discussing in review is equally important from exam point of view. If you want to go in detail, you go through I would recommend you to go through the slides, the regular lecture slides. So when we run this operation, it will concatenate the list elements, and when we run the same plus operation on NumPy array, it will actually perform the addition or subtraction, whatever we want to do. 1 plus 4 will give 5, 7, and 9. I think that's it. The pandas we did not discuss. So there were 3 slides. We did not discuss panda. So this is it. And because this is the last session, I would like to thank you and good luck for your exam. And if you have any question, I'm still here until 12. You can ask me whatever questions you have. All right. Thank you.